So here's the drill. I have seen this movie 5 times. I love this movie. I get something out of it every time I see it. My name is Scott Nance. Let me just tell you a couple things about Marty Supreme. First of all, what did you all think of the movie? Okay, so Marty Supreme is nominated for 11 Bafta awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, Lead Actor. It is nominated for 3 SAG Actor Awards, including Supporting Actress for Odessa Zion, Lead Actor and Best Cast, Best Acting Ensemble. Hang on, there's more. It is nominated for 9 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, Lead Actor. Our lead actor tonight won Lead Actor at the Golden Globes and the Critics' Choice. And as of this moment, Marty Supreme, are you ready for this? It is past $150 million worldwide, making it the biggest movie yet for its distributor, A24. Let's give it up for A24. Okay, so with that, giving the performance of a lifetime, all rise and give it up for Timothée Chalamet.
Thank you.
First of all, you heard everything I just said. How proud are you that the movie has done so well, that you got 900 people tonight, the movie's it's done so well. The box office, how proud are you?
No, deeply proud, grateful for everyone being here tonight. Thanks for such a tremendous intro and put, threw everything into perspective for me. So very grateful. Just out of curiosity, who was a first-time viewer of the movie tonight? Wow, a lot of people, man. Wow. So when Rachel wipes the bruise, that was shocking tonight. Great. Nice.
You should have heard everybody went, ooh. It was great. So the question really isn't so much how did this come about, Timothée? It's when, how long ago did this come about? Tell me about the first conversation you had with Josh Safdie.
Yeah, this was a 6 or 7 year process. I met Josh a long time ago. I think we felt like brethren immediately. We both had a New York background. I was immediately dying to work with him, as would any young actor trying to get their career going. We weirdly were going to do some sort of fashion short together that fell apart. And then he had this idea sort of on a whim. It wasn't The Strand. It was a different bookstore in New York, but they have sort of like a discount book rack outside. And Josh's wife, then girlfriend, now wife, bought him a book that loosely inspired this. And he approached me about it, and then it was sort of touch and go for a while, but I was always kind of circling him like a vulture, trying to, like, when are we doing this, and then there was a window when we did this, and I really made sure to keep everything free, because he's not a particularly prolific filmmaker. Like Uncut Gems was 6 years ago, so he's not making movies all the time, so I was hot after this.
All right, so around that time, this was like Call Me By Her Name, Beautiful Boy, Hostiles. What did Marty Supreme look like at that time? Maybe the script wasn't there, but maybe the outline was. How different was it from the version we just saw?
No, I think it was maybe untraditionally. There wasn't an outline. I think there was an essence. As far as, I have, like I said, Josh and I have this New York background. I think he really wanted to capture a movie with that sort of energy. And if Uncut Gems and Good Time are sort of, I think burnt out isn't the right expression, but guys that are on the other side of destiny or something, Marty Supreme is the inverse. It's really about a guy just, dreaming big. I watched the last 10 minutes with you guys tonight too, and table tennis is a metaphor, and not one I deeply relate to in my personal life, but it for me it was acting, and it could be whatever it is based on the individual, but this feeling when destiny holds you hostage, when your fate holds you hostage, that's how Josh puts it. And people think that people that have an individualistic streak in life have a sense of freedom, and it's the opposite. You have a purpose. That's my favorite scene in the movie is the purpose scene with Rachel, and I related to that scene so deeply when I read it, not in antagonizing your partner in life, hopefully, but more in the sense of when you feel like you got a talent or you feel like maybe you got an edge, you got to see it through, especially when you're young. But once you're over the hill on something, it's hard to run it back. And no one, when you're young, incentivizes you, or few people do, to push you in that direction.
You must have really found a lot, it sounds like, to really connect with Marty Mouser, a lot to relate to, a lot that informed your performance. But were there other, maybe movies, other characters in films that also helped you find Marty Mouser?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't particularly want to cite them because sometimes you give stuff away. And also, you know, Jack Fisk is a tremendous production designer on this movie, maybe like one of the best production designers ever. He did There Will Be Blood and worked with David Litch a ton. We did a Q&A together. And see, AI's taking over, man. AI's taking over. No, anyway, we did a Q&A, and he said, someone asked him what films had influenced him, and I loved his response where he said, you know, if you pull from other movies, you're pulling from the watered-down version of real life already. And point being, he goes to documentaries, he goes to real life. That sounds very cheesy what I'm saying, but I feel like the biggest inspirations for me were real life figures. We're like the crazy kids on the subway in New York. If anybody here's from New York, you know the wild. You know the wild kind of guy Marty is in the movie, and that kind of cracked out person who wears their personality as their armor. I could relate to that deeply too. You know, when going to a performing arts high school and being smaller than everyone, you know, your outlandishness can be your personality. It's your defense mechanism. I related to that with Marty. That's why I like that the glasses are so thick in the movie. I risk it repeating myself for the 1000th time. You know, Josh had me wear contacts that offset my vision in the movie, and then I'm wearing thick glasses on top of the contacts to then correct my vision. So I had this effect that I was sort of like in a fishbowl, and but it made sense to me that Marty's living a life of impairment, and then so as a person you counterweight that. You know, you're braggadocious, you're audacious, you're swaggerful, you're overconfident. You know, you're bashful, I just. That just deeply resonated with me. And then if you talk about real life figures that inspired me, again, I risk repeating myself, but any sports great ever, you know, I watched that Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance, maybe every morning on this movie in the makeup trailer. I'm sure people have seen The Last Dance in here, right? That was a big COVID movie, big COVID documentary. But I'm a huge sports fan, I'm a huge basketball fan, and Jordan wasn't my generation growing up, so going back to it, I was like, wow, this guy is the definition of a fierce competitor. And also liked, I know I'm rambling, I'm sorry. That's the benefit of not doing a Q&A with 6 people from the kind of say my piece. No, but no one else was on that invite, right? I hope not. Yeah, I liked what was I gonna say? I lost my train of thought. Yeah, it's about Jordan. And yeah, I lost it. It'll come back to me.
So, okay, this is also in addition to, you know, I think, I really, look, I'm a massive Bob Dylan fan. And when I was watching A Complete Unknown, let's hear it for A Complete Unknown. Which you won the SAG Award, Actor Award last year for lead actor. You know, I went in, I'm like, you know, I know my Dylan, and you knocked it out of the friggin' park. I thought that, my God, this is the performance of your career. And then, right after your New York premiere for Marty, I saw the first screening in LA they had at the Grove, and Christopher Nolan was in the audience, which was very cool. But then I'm like, you topped yourself. You absolutely topped yourself. But also, this is your third feature as a producer, after Bones and All, Complete Unknown, now Marty. So, what were the producing challenges that you faced in addition to the acting challenges that you faced?
I mean, it was more, I would say in the pre and post, I was most hands-on. On set, there was some things with Miyako Belizzi, for instance, the costume designer. There was some pull. I had some costume shops in New York that kind of helped with some of the background casting, because the background artists in this movie are phenomenal, and the faces are phenomenal. But that's a lot. I think there were hundreds, if not over 1,000, of background costumes. So that's a good example of something within the production that was helpful on. I think it was more in shaping the project, and that sounds so pretentious, but it's the truth. It's like, you know, what was the essence of this thing going to be? You know, who were maybe the great faces that could join us, and then in post, but the post contributions were more like putting out the movie and the rollout of the movie. I can't say I had any meaningful editorial note. I think Josh is tremendously locked in. That was the challenge of shifting from A Complete Unknown to Marty Supreme. I felt like on the set of A Complete Unknown, the amount of research I did on Bob Dylan, I felt like the authority, even though Mangold was as well versed. I had a level of confidence with it. And here I had to kind of have a sense of humility in that this was Josh and Ronnie, the co-writers' baby. They had a firm grip on what the essence of this was. It was different than Dylan, you know? A Complete Unknown and Marty Supreme I shot in the span of 4 months or something. I finished A Complete Unknown in April or May or whatever it was, and I shot this 4 or 5 months later, staying out of the same apartment in New York, you know? And at risk of like delusions of grandeur or something, but sometimes you can just feel like you're on a wave or something. I really believe that. And I was itching to do Marty Supreme because I felt the confidence, the transcendent experience I had on Dylan. I'll never have an experience like that again. And maybe it comes with playing a real life figure, maybe it's the lyrics and the music. And I carried that into Marty Supreme, and truth be told, I carried that energy from Marty Supreme into Dune Part 3. And so I'm just, I'm stoked, man, and now I gotta take a break.
Right, so, yeah, we definitely need a break. But here's the thing, Timothy, I'm just trying to wrap my head around all of the preparation that you had to do for Dylan. Learning the guitar, learning his mannerisms, his voice, singing. At the same time, you were learning the whole table tennis thing. How were you able to juggle prepping for Dylan, prepping for Marty Supreme, filming Wonka, filming 3 Dune movies? How were you able to really multitask and do all that and prioritize and give each part the level of commitment that they needed, which was a lot?
Well, the hunger of youth and the reckless abandon in these pursuits, and that for Dylan and for Marty Supreme, it's like a process of osmosis. Over time, these things are naturally made me curious. With Dylan, it needs no explanation. Like, that was the gift that keeps on giving to this day. I'll find an old demo. I found an old demo of him and George Harrison playing music, and it's unbelievable. I found that like last week. And with Marty too, because I was charmed by the world of table tennis. I was charmed at the way these guys, you know, look so formal and elegant in the 1950s. Makes no sense for you know, table tennis, and the idea of, we put it in the context of Complete Unknown. In the 1960s, you had the beatniks, and you had these guys who were the Woody Guthrie generation, you know. But then 10 years prior, I love this idea. Lawrence is in Times Square, the first black-owned business ever in Times Square. You had these ragtag group of ping pong players, you know, and I was further inspired that Josh became obsessed with this, you know, and it just was, when your curiosity gets sparked, it's easy to do the preparation. And also, I do try to bring an athletic background in acting. It makes no sense because I dreamed of being an athlete. I didn't have the skill, the power, the ability. No one encouraged that dream, and rightfully, and. But I've been able to, and so for this, it was so evident, you know, it was easy to put the time in, and practice makes perfect, and I put the time in on this, you know, with all the table tennis stuff in preparation, and in these sequences are, you know, hilariously elaborate for what ends up being on screen. That's not taking anything away from the work, but the amount of preparation that went into each point, and the memorization that's to go into it. I would give things names to remember the point. There'd be like a little flourish in some capacity. I would try to, just to have the ability to remember what we're actually doing.
So memory is a great save, because I'm surprised this question doesn't come up often to actors, especially like the SAG Foundation. I do a lot of stuff for them, but you know, you're talking about the immersion, the commitment, the discipline of capturing a performance, of connecting, of relating, like you did with Marty. But how do you remember your lines? Like, do you have especially when there's a dense script like this, like, how do you remember your lines?
I think that the more something connects with my core, and the more there's levels to a scene, the more it's easier to memorize. I feel sometimes like it's not even like you're memorizing the lines, it's more like you're memorizing where you are emotionally, like where you are in your gut kind of thing. In fact, that's how you can tell a scene is poorly written sometimes. I say that as someone who's never written a scene ever, you know, so I say that, no, in other words, I say it with humility, because I'm not saying I could say, here's how to write a good scene, but I can tell when something's not sitting right, and usually it's because it's hard to memorize, because you go, okay, this isn't leading to something, you know. And on a practical level, as far as memorizing, Josh and Ronnie they were so clear they wanted me close to the script here. It's been so fascinating doing these Q&As with them, because coming from the school of Bob Dylan, like, I don't want to over-explain things sometimes as an actor, as an artist, and sometimes I felt like they would kind of over-explain things, and that after a while I sort of got it. It's because they don't want their work to be understood in a juvenile way, and I think some of the humor is so elemental in a good way and ridiculous at times, it could be misconstrued as such, you know, but they're really precise about the words. Like, I think that line, like, you want to be physical like an ape? You know, that's a great example where Josh gave me a borderline line reading there, and he was totally correct in doing so, you know, he was firmly, he knew what that moment was. So this had a combination of deep memorization, and then if natural improvisation came in, they were really open to that, you know, but it would have to be warranted. I never come to set thinking, oh, I'm gonna wage a war for this idea that, you know, it's gotta work, and they were open to that, but also really precise with the words, and I get that.
What about experimentation? I feel like Josh, after Uncut Gems, which 7 years ago, there was a lot of experimentation with that, with Sandler in that role too. I'm wondering how much experimentation, how did Josh in particular, because he directed it, sort of push you in ways that you surprised yourself?
That's a great question. I mean, like I was saying before, like, using words like audacious or braggadocious or swaggerful, like, those are the first notes he gave me on the movie. The first shot we shot in the movie is the exterior of Paris, where we shot to be Paris, and I'm walking down the street. It's kind of a random shot within the movie. That's the first thing I shot, and he came over, he goes, more swagger, more audacity. And it was music to my ears. I don't know, wow, no one's ever said that to me ever. You know? I was like so stoked to hear that from him. And it's funny because I feel like the first week he was pushing me all over the place, and I love he's not like professorial about the way he communicates. He'll be like, you know, text me at 3 a.m. Marty's like this. Or I always appreciated that too. We'd be at the monitor and looking at a take, and Josh really isn't seeing me on screen. It's always Marty. It's always Marty this, Marty that. Even now, when he watches me, we go, I love when Marty says that thing. You know, so he had this vision that wasn't pretentious. It wasn't professorial, like I said. It would be like a random text, or it'd be a song, or it'd be an image, or it'd be, even for that last sequence, that table tennis sequence, I love that. I love the victory there of Marty, because it doesn't feel like a classic sports movie, like triumphant moment. And without saying what it was, but he had sent me a reference of a sports victory of someone that was nuanced like that, where, you know, they say sometimes Olympians hit a depression right after they win their gold because it's like top of the mountain syndrome or something, you know. And so he was just absolutely spot on. You know, he was incredibly precise with his direction. You know?
I mean, talk about a movie that sticks the landing. The last scene when Marty is looking at his kid, that close-up. I mean, that's an amazing scene, right? I mean, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And then, you know, Tears for Fears. I mean, what a perfect song. What about filming that scene? I mean, did you do like different takes on it? Tell us about it.
Yeah, I think we did 2 or 3 takes. That's obviously the scene I circle as an actor and go, oh boy, then you have that day. But I don't have much more to say than that. You know, it was, you know, there was one really lovely grip I was allowing myself to be friends with throughout the shoot. I usually try to keep to myself, and I got to set that day. He goes, don't fuck this up. I'm never talking to that guy ever again.
All right, so I gotta say, this cast is amazing. I mean, Gwyneth Paltrow was fantastic. Kevin O'Leary is amazing. But Odessa Azion, who was also nominated for a SAG-AFTRA Award, supporting actress. Tell us about working with Odessa, about how both of you elevate each other, because the moments you have in the apartment, like getting the dog, in the car, all that stuff is just so high wire.
No, Odessa was phenomenal in this movie. She brought such an intangible energy, you know, and I said it to her as soon as we wrapped, and I've said it in other Q&As, but I had a sense that Odessa didn't know what a phenomenal performance she was giving. And I didn't want to tell her either. It's like a picture throwing a perfect game or something. You don't want to mess with her flow. Yeah. But even we shot that hospital scene where she's getting wheeled on the gurney and she's screaming for help, and it was unbelievable. I mean, she was really chaotic and going for it. And then Josh said, "Okay, moving on." She goes, "No, I don't think I got it." I was like, "Whoa, that was amazing," And no, but I just can't speak more highly of her. She just brought it, and it was just this unique energy. And I think Odessa's a unicorn. It's an amazing thing to see. I don't know, I wouldn't know who to compare her to or something.
So Josh is nominated for 4 Academy Awards as a director, a screenwriter, producer, and as an editor. And Ronnie is nominated for screenwriting and editing. So Josh and Ronnie both wrote and edited the movie. How involved were you? Because again, you produced on film. The collaboration you have with both those guys when it came to writing and also the editing.
There were some things it's it wouldn't be conducive to conversations. There were some editing thoughts I had, but nothing was imperative. Nothing was ground changing. This movie is their baby, and I got to say, we did that Oscars luncheon the other day, and seeing those two get up there. Also, when Elle Fanning got up there, because I was just so proud of her for sentimental value. But when Josh, man, I was so moved to see them get up there. Man, these guys wrote their first films in a projection booth. Ronnie was a projectionist at Lincoln Center. He was a projectionist. I think that's so moving to me, and it's like being the ball boy and then hitting a grand slam in the World Series or something, I couldn't be prouder to have done it with these guys. Their heart is in the right place. They're not in that LA, whatever. I should cut myself off before I say something controversial. These guys are really the real deal, man. They're not in it for the accolades. They're not. They almost. I said this to Josh at his DGA thing. He doesn't have the institutional bone in his body. I don't know what it would take for him to. He'll never, he met Steven Spielberg. I forgot to say this in my speech, man, and now I'm happy to say it. He met Spielberg, the god of cinema, and he's like, "How does E.T. shit?" What? That's what you're gonna say to him? And then Spielberg had this very fascinating thing that E.T. is actually a plant, was his response. It was really esoteric, awesome answer. and then we saw Spielberg again a couple weeks later, and then Josh crossed and went, "E.T.'s a plant! E.T.'s a plant!" Dude, you're in the room, man. I was like, anyway.
When you're at the Oscar luncheon like that, I mean, all the nominees are there, from obviously, Best Actor to animated short. Do people come up to you and tell you how much they love Marty Supreme, how much they love your performance? I mean, what stuck out at you as that meant a lot?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, just the other artists the people that wrote the song for K-pop Demon Hunter and stuff. That's moving, man. Because I'm like, those two movies don't have a lot in common. Marty Supreme and K-pop Demon Hunter. Maybe they do. I don't know. Someone could write a great paper on that. But that luncheon day was so moving. I don't know. I think whether because of the fires last year, or maybe I was doing a complete unknown thing. I don't know if they had it or I wasn't there. They didn't. So I done it for Call Me by Your Name, and this luncheon thing. Everyone is honored the same way, and it's just very moving to see people that don't usually get their shine, whether it's a sound operator on one movie or a prop person on another or a makeup person, and everyone's so moved. If you work in this industry like we all do, you're a misfit to some degree. It's very rare. The people that aren't misfits last 32 seconds. You're like, "Oh shit, I'm gonna go get a real job." And so to see people that have been a misfit and that will continue to be misfits after this moment get at least one moment of ceremony, and to go up and it's so cheesy in a class picture and stuff. It's really charming, man. I was really moved this year.
You said that Ronnie was a projectionist at Lincoln Center.
True.
So isn't that where you had your New York premiere for the?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he must have been. It's so even seeing Ronnie go through this whole thing. Ronnie wrote the script with Josh, and like I said, they're so skeptical of the institutionalism they can't realize hey, no, this is good, man. This is a good thing. They're kind of forever outsiders. They're Marty Mauser in spirit in totality. If Marty won $10 million playing ping pong and he was still suspicious of everything,
How did making Marty Supreme, playing Marty Mauser, change you as an actor?
Well, I would say a complete unknown into Marty Supreme, into Dune without saying too much about it, but, you know, at risk of sounding cheesy again, but like authorship and perspective, these are my two favorite words of the year because I think it's hard as an actor to find that in your work. You know, you're given lines to say and sometimes where to stand, how to say them. If you're doing the promo, what to say, what the talking points are. And I feel like with both of those movies, starting with Bob, because I felt like I was him. In fact, when I watched the movie the first time, I went, "Oh shit, I'm not him." It was like it was a strange experience. And into Marty, you know, and Marty kind of gave me that "fuck you" attitude. I don't know, like that's not even the right way to put it, but kind of like a triumphant spirit. You know, even that SAG Awards speech I had last year, like that was all Marty, man. I wasn't like, that's just because I was, oh shit. I was like, oh, I didn't think I was getting up here. Now I'm gonna say how I actually feel. You know, it was like it was out of body or something, and that all comes from the spirit of Marty. Those are the best roles, man, that can rub off on you, and they point me forward in my own life. It's like the opposite of being a musician. A musician charts where they are in life, and then they move on with their life. As an actor, I've been lucky when I'm doing these roles, and they kind of point me where I'm going, you know, or maybe I have a personality disorder or something, but maybe a little bit of both.
But I mean, really, the immersion that you had to do, especially for Dylan and for Marty, you know, people always talk about getting into character, but when you're playing Bob Dylan, when you're playing Marty Mauser, and your shoot's over, that's a wrap. How do you get out of character? How do you let it go?
Well, with the Dylan movie, I was really upset. Upset's not the right word, but I had one of those like deep cries, those long cries, you know, because I was so sad to see it over, and I felt like a spirit had passed through me or something. It sounds so cheesy, but it's true. I felt like that music was so phenomenal to me. And here I felt like an athlete at the end of a match, honestly. I felt spent. And, you know, we had that week in Japan that came out a little bit after the original shoot. You know, a movie like Beautiful Boy, or even Dune to an extent, where the tone can be heavy. Beautiful Boy is a great example. I just watched that again this week. The tone was so heavy. That felt like having to consciously get out of that vibe. And it was challenging in doing so, because it felt like the material in that was a mirror to what many people's experience are in the world. Even right now in Skid Row, you know, or anywhere, in any neighborhood in LA, people are so, and it's hard to, it almost feels selfish to get out of that vibe. And with Marty Supreme, I didn't want to get out of it. That's my joke about the SAG Awards last year. It was like, no, I want to keep this mentality. I want to keep the spirit. I'm not saying being adversarial to people and holding people up at gunpoint and stuff like that. But that'd be a great headline if you saw me doing that. No, but just to keep that, you know, I remember at the, you know, like at the Met Gala a couple years ago, somebody I didn't know, like, I forget what he even said. He just said something to me, like, he stopped me. He basically said, like, don't give him an inch. He said something like that. I forget what it was, but it was shocking to me. Like, this guy, and I love that, man. And Marty doesn't really have that figure. Maybe Rachel's the closest thing to that figure, someone who totally has his back and believes in him, you know. And again, we're in a room full of artists. I know a lot of people who are actors, and it's like, sometimes you feel like no one has your back, you know, no one's your backstop but you. And that can feel narcissistic or selfish or whatever, but really, if you're in a pursuit in anything in life, to be the greatest chef or whatever, it's like you gotta be your backstop, man. And people don't know how to incentivize you to have that attitude. They wouldn't know how, you know.
Keep doing what you do.
Scott.
On behalf of everyone in this room, I say bravo, big congratulations. Thank you, everyone.